Hello, my name is Ellie Rodriguez, and I'm the Director of Communications and Public Relations at the Texas Association of Community Colleges. This year's TACM president, Janet, has asked me to give a small update of what TAC is up to and what we can expect in this upcoming legislative session. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the TACM conference in person, so I pulled from the resources we're all familiar with, and I'm just going to treat this as we were all on a Zoom call together. And so I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll go through these slides pretty quickly. As I stated, I work for the Texas Association of Community Colleges. If you're unfamiliar with our association, we serve 48 of the 50 community college districts in Texas, and we represent their needs at the Texas Capitol during the legislative session. During the interim, we also continue to foster relationships with legislators so that they are appropriately educated on the needs of community colleges across the state. And so the way that this presentation is set up is I'll take you to the past and talk a little bit about what we did in the 87th legislature so you understand the present, which then we'll talk about what TAC is up to right now, what our efforts are, and then finally we'll talk about the future and how TACM can really help us this upcoming legislative session. So starting off here, I'll go through these next three slides pretty quickly. Just a quick refresher, we're probably very familiar with this information, but community colleges in Texas are funded through three main buckets, and you'll see those here. First one is state appropriations, local property taxes, and tuition and fees. So these are the three big buckets that community colleges receive. They're all primarily funded this way. However, last session leading into the 87th, TAC realized that there was a big issue with the way community colleges were being funded. They weren't being funded appropriately with everything that has changed in the world. And the formula hadn't changed in more than 50 years. That's a very long time. Even looking back now, community colleges are not the same that they were 2 years ago before the pandemic hit. So we saw this as an issue. We brought it up to our members. They agreed, and we agreed that we would take it up to the 87th legislature and see what we could do. Just quick graphics, you'll see here the percentages of the way that those three buckets have changed over time. Starting over here in 2010 all the way to 2020, you'll see that state appropriations has really skyrocketed. So it's about 47%. Another visual showing the same thing. You'll see how state appropriations over here at the bottom screen has shrunk over time, but local property taxes has really had to grow to fill up that space. So we saw this as a problem. We walked into the 87th legislature and said, hey, we want to pass something called SB 1230, which was establishing the Texas Commission on Community College Finance. Luckily, this bill passed on May 7th, and the bill basically said that this commission would evaluate the way community colleges were funded and provide recommendations for the 88th legislature on how to change this funding model. So here is that written all out, but you'll focus over here on the goal at the top right, and it says the commission shall make recommendations for consideration by the 88th Texas legislature for establishing a state funding formula and funding levels sufficient for sustaining viable community college education and training offerings throughout the state. So this is what we recommended. Like I said, it passed May 7th. And we walked into the interim with this huge win. That meant that the commission was going to meet during the interim. So after the legislative session, we waited for the appointments to be called on by the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker of the House. TAC had an appointee, CAT had an appointee, and faculty were able to make a recommendation. Those appointments came out, and here you have the 12 commissioners. You'll see some familiar faces on the screen. We have Mr. Woody Hunt, who is a very affluent business leader, primarily in El Paso because that's where he's from, but even just across the state of Texas, he's the presiding officer. You have Dr. Marcus Gamilla from Del Mar. You have Senator Brandon Creighton, who's been a huge advocate for community colleges over the past few years. You have Chancellor Steve Head, Dr. Brenda Hellier, Brian Jones, who is faculty at Odessa College, Dr. Brenda Kays, Kilgore College, Representative Oscar Longoria, Ms. Carol Scott, who is actually the chair of the trustee association, but also a serving trustee at Del Mar College. We have Senator Larry Taylor, Representative Gary Van Dever, and of course, Mr. Todd Williams, who is the CEO of the Commit Partnership. These 12 people were appointed as commissioners, and so they were tasked with what we had just seen as the goal of the commission, just to reevaluate the way community colleges were funded. The commissioners started meeting November 15th, 2021, and they've met 4 times since then. They've met here in Austin. One of those meetings had to be virtual because of the pandemic. And so from there, they broke up into work groups, 3 different work groups, to really continue to do this deep dive. Come January 21st, they will meet again here in a couple of days, at which the TACC chair, Dr. William Serrata, will present. So we're very excited and we're prepping for that over here at TACC. And then early August, we're expecting public hearings on recommendations. So we'll start seeing that sneak peek of what the commission will be recommending. September 12th, we're expecting a draft report. October 18th, final changes. And then we expect to have a final report from the commission of their recommendations in November. That's right before legislative session starts. And so we know that session starts this upcoming year, January 10th, 2023. So TACC will be very busy during this time. We've already been busy just meeting with the commissioners, making sure that they have all of the resources, making sure that we provide our members with all of the resources. But let me do a little quick dive. Like I said, I'll go through these slides relatively quickly on the work groups. So we have the college operation work group. You see here those people, and then what they were tasked with. So college operations is trends and patterns in community college enrollment. They're focusing on service areas and taxing district structure. We know that they don't overlap very much. And then just enhancing community college operations. We have the student support work group, which, they're studying trends in student success. They want to increase access and completion. They're focusing on alignment and limitations of the current financing model, and then how to support and encourage student success practices in college campuses. Finally, we have the workforce education work group. You'll see the members there as well. They're focusing on understanding economic projections, workforce needs, and aligned education opportunities. They're also focusing on workforce needs and credentials of value. So making sure that the credentials that our community colleges offer transfer over to the workforce directly, and then how to be responsive to different student and institutional needs. So the 3 work groups are doing their respective deep dives, coming together then to build out this report with the recommendations. So that is the present. How does TACM fit into all of this? So as soon as these recommendations come out, which, like I said, we're expecting in November, we need to get the voice out. We need to make sure that we come together in unity and that our community college voice is strong and resonates throughout the entire state. So TACC currently is pushing out these 3 main messages. These are our key messages. We're first educating people on how community colleges are funded, because that is the main source, right? We need to make sure people know how community colleges are funded so that they understand how the current funding model does not fit our current needs. 2, we need to make sure that we tell people that community colleges are more critical than ever. We know that with COVID, with people training and reskilling to go back into the workforce, community colleges are really there to meet those needs. And lastly, the potential implications of the commission and its failure. So if these recommendations are not passed in this upcoming session, what does that mean for community colleges? How would that impact the state, et cetera, et cetera? And so these are just key messages that we have been pushing at TACC throughout these months, and we would love for TACM to continue to help us push these messages out. More importantly, what we're doing for tactics, we're going to be producing leadership voice videos, which is where we interview our community college presidents and have them speak to the importance of these recommendations. We've had already success with media coverage, and we'll continue to be pitching to the media about this commission. We have a website stood up about the commission where we provide regular updates to it based on what the commission has come out with. You'll find all of the commission recordings there from the previous meetings and their materials. We have a partnership with the Texas Tribune where we've already been pushing op-eds and ads. We're already producing explainer videos on complicated community college topics that just really break it down. I invite you to go to our webpage and see those whiteboard animations. We issue MailChimp reminders to our members to make sure that they're all engaging when the commission is meeting so that there's strong presence of community college leadership. In November, once the recommendations are out, we will be creating at TACC a media toolkit that has all of the resources that you need to push out these messages and these recommendations. And we'd love to provide all of the TACC members with that media toolkit so that you can just plug and play, right? You're already putting out this message of how important your community college is to your community and why these recommendations are important. And so in November, be expecting that from us. We also write up interview talking points for anytime one of our members gets a requested interview. Also in November, once the recommendations are out, we'll be producing social media graphics. And then last but not least, we are highlighting student voices. So we actually have a CAT conference going on right now, which is of the trustees. And we have students that are attending and talking about why this commission is important and why their recommendations are going to be so valuable. So as you can see, I've put in red the two big points where we really need TACC's help, and we want to make sure that our messages are streamlined. In order to do that, TACC will also like to stand up a platform or a meeting where we bring together GR professionals, so government relations from colleges and comms people, and that we can provide an update. And so for that, we would love for you to share your email with us. So if you're interested in meeting up and listening to these advocacy updates, we're more than happy to give them to you. If you just, sign up, and we'll reach out and schedule these meetings and make sure that we're getting our voice heard. I know I said I kept it short, and now it's 15 minutes. And so if you need anything else, please feel free to contact me. My contact and email is here. And thank you so much for listening.